Ralph Stanfield is alleged to be one of the most powerful figures in Cape Town's criminal underworld. He didn't just operate in the shadows. He stepped inside the very structures meant to uphold law and order and made them work for him. But Stanfield was never alone. By his side was his wife, Nicole Johnson, a woman who played a crucial role in legitimizing their empire. While Stanfield's name carried fear as the leader of the firm, a faction of the notorious 28s gang, Nicole gave their operation a polished, businesslike facade. Together, they became a power couple whose reach extended far beyond the world of street crime. Since September 2023, Ralph Stanfield, his wife Nicole Johnson, and several co-accused have sat behind bars. But to understand how it came to this, how their empire was built and ultimately shattered, we must rewind to the early 1990s and trace every hit, every attempted hit, and every act of violence that paved the road to their arrest. In the mid-1990s and into the early 2000s, there was one name that commanded fear in Cape Town's shadows: Colin Stanfield. To the police, he was a powerful drug kingpin, a man running a criminal empire from the shadows. But on the Cape Flats, many saw a different side, a community figure handing out food parcels, paying school fees, and helping families in need. It was a carefully crafted image, using acts of kindness to win loyalty and keep people quiet. But behind that friendly face, the streets told a darker truth. People were dying, and the empire he built was only growing stronger. Colin grew up in Valhalla Park, one of the Cape Flats communities hit hardest by poverty and gang violence. In court and in the press, he was often described as the quiet power behind a loose alliance of gang bosses called The Firm. In the 1990s, as vigilante group Pagad, People Against Gangsterism and Drugs, attacked drug dealers, Stanfield helped build this pact to keep the underworld united and the drug trade moving. Reporters linked him to the prison-born 28s network that shaped parts of Cape Town's street gangs. The 20s are part of the numbers gang system, created more than a century ago in South Africa's prisons. Within that code, the 28s are the warriors, enforcing order and protecting the gang's interests both inside and outside prison walls. But the charge that finally stuck wasn't for drugs, it was for tax fraud. In March 2001, the High Court ruled that Stanfield had massively underdeclared his income, 2.6 million rand, a huge amount in South Africa, especially in the early 1990s. By then, his net worth was estimated at over 30 million rand. He was sentenced to 6 years behind bars for tax evasion, a punishment meant to deter even well-connected offenders from exploiting the system. Stanfield appealed and walked free on 100,000 rand bail while the case wound its way through the courts. There were darker allegations too. In June 2001, police arrested Stanfield and others on a murder charge tied to a 1995 killing in Valhalla Park. He denied being a drug boss, telling the court he made his money as a fruit and vegetable hawker. Whatever the truth, he remained a central figure, feared by rivals, defended by supporters. The appeal failed. In February 2002, Colin reported to Helderstrom prison to start his sentence. A year later, everything changed. Doctors found small cell lung cancer, aggressive, inoperable. Medical reports to the High Court said even with treatment, life expectancy was about a year. In 2003, a judge ordered his release on medical parole. On Sunday, the 4th of October, 2004, around 7:15 a.m., Colin Stanfield died at Southern Cross Hospital in Wynberg. He was 50 years old. After his death, the name The Firm slowly faded away. But the network he built didn't disappear. Researchers say his chosen man to take over on the streets was his nephew, Ralph Stanfield. A new generation, accused of connecting prison gangs to business fronts, extortion, and the drug trade across the Cape Flats. The faces changed. The system simply found new ways to survive. In his early 20s, Ralph was suddenly thrust into a world where every handshake and every look could be a test of strength. He inherited more than just a name. He took control of the 28's street operations, built on his uncle's legacy, and rooted in the strongholds of Bishop Lavis and Valhalla Park. At first, people doubted him. He was young, untested, stepping into a role even veteran gangsters feared. But Ralph wasted no time. He brought in senior 28's members, made new alliances, and locked down the drug routes his uncle once controlled. Between 2013 and 2014, Stanfield is believed to have secured several prohibited weapons by using his connections with corrupt police officers. His official applications for gun licenses were denied time and time again, but it only pushed him further. Through the right contacts, he found another way. A police investigation later uncovered one of South Africa's largest gun smuggling scandals. It was supposed to be simple. Confiscated and surrendered firearms would be destroyed, forever removed from the streets. But instead, they were recycled into the deadliest corners of the underworld. At the center of this scandal was a man named Christian Prinsloo, a senior police colonel. Instead of destroying the weapons, Prinsloo stole thousands of them, pistols, rifles, and sold them to Cape Town's gang lords. Weapons that should have been scrap metal were now fueling gang wars. Between 2007 and 2015, more than 2,000 firearms were diverted in this way. Forensic tests later linked these guns to over 1,000 murders, many of them children caught in crossfire on the Cape Flats. In 2016, Prinsloo pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison, but served less than 4 before being released on parole. Stanfield was never directly charged in the Prinsloo case. In 2017, Ralph Stanfield nearly lost his life in Johannesburg. Gunmen opened fire on his Audi R8 in a drive-by shooting. 14 rounds struck the car. Several tore into Stanfield's body, but the bulletproof vest beneath his clothes stopped the most lethal shots, and he managed to drive himself to the hospital. As he entered the Medi Clinic Morningside parking area, Stanfield lost control of the R8. The supercar slammed into 3 parked vehicles before coming to a stop, riddled with bullet holes. Photographs that later surfaced on social media told their own story. A small window beside the driver's head, pierced clean through by a bullet. Police, fearing another attempt on his life, refused to name the hospital publicly, but the images left no doubt where the drama had ended. The attack was no random act. It came amid a wave of targeted shootings against suspected gang bosses in both Cape Town and Johannesburg. And for detectives, it was clear. This was a calculated move in a much bigger war. Stanfield had survived, but the message from his enemies was unmistakable. They had come to kill him, and next time, they might not miss. In the ruthless world of organized crime, it's not just gang bosses who find themselves in the crosshairs. 8 months before the attempted hit on Ralph Stanfield, his own lawyer, Nuruddin Hassan, was gunned down. He was 45 years old, sitting in the passenger seat outside his home in Lansdowne, when a gunman walked up and fired 6 shots. He never had a chance to react. Hours later, Hassan was pronounced dead in hospital. Locals recall the sound of rapid gunfire echoing through the streets. This was no random act. It was a calculated execution, a message to anyone tied to the underworld. It wasn't the first time his life was targeted. Months earlier, a bomb was thrown at his home. Hassan wasn't there, but his family escaped in the final moments, just before the explosion tore through the house. In his career, Hassan defended some of the country's most notorious gang figures, earning the reputation of a gang lawyer. Among his clients, Jerome Booysen, the feared head of the Sexy Boys gang. And these are real images of Nuruddin Hassan's funeral. family, friends, and community members paying their respects. Friday, 13th December 2019, two men walked up to a silver sedan on London Road, Salt River, and opened fire. A dozen bullets ripped through the windshield. Inside the car was Rashied Staggie, notorious leader of the Hard Livings. He was rushed to hospital, but it was already too late. His life ended within minutes. It wasn't the first time the Staggie name made headlines in Salt River. Back in 1996, Rashid's twin brother Rashid, leader of the Hard Livings gang, was shot and burned alive in the same area by members of PAGAD, People Against Gangsterism and Drugs.
A while ago, police probing then this shooting which has allegedly killed Rashied Staggie. His brother Rashid, at the time in the 1990s, also a leader of the gang himself, was killed in this very area.
After Rashid's death, suspicion spread quickly. Reports claimed that alleged 28's boss Ralph Stanfield booked a holiday trip for himself, his family, and his friend Jonathan just after the murder. When Jonathan returned, police questioned him, but he refused to talk. With no evidence strong enough to hold him, investigators were forced to release him after the 48-hour detention limit expired. Nearly 5 years later, on the 13th of September 2024, investigators made their move. Ralph and his associate Jonathan were formally charged with the murder of Rashied Staggie.
At this stage, we've got 26 accused, and we're likely to add more. We're likely to end up with close to 40 accused when we've tied up everything. The charges vary. You'll find there's also a charge of murder of Staggie.
Members of the Hard Livings gang say they always knew Ralph was behind the killing, but they still don't know why. After all, Ralph grew up in front of Rashied. And when Ralph was shot in Johannesburg in 2017, it was Rashied who went to see him. But Rashied himself was no saint. In 2003, he was convicted of kidnapping and raping a 17-year-old state witness and sentenced to 15 years in prison. A year later, he was found guilty of plotting the Fower Police Armory raid, a plan to arm himself for gang wars. He received another 13 years, served at the same time. After serving 11 long years behind bars, Rashied was finally granted day parole. Inside those prison walls, he had turned to Christianity. He talked of redemption and vowed to walk away from his old life.
I'm a man of honor and a man of peace and work for Son of God. Thank you.
In September 2013, he walked free. He called himself a born-again Christian and became active in his community. But many believed he was still involved in crime. Some reports say Staggie came up with a scheme that used churches to launder drug money, further blurring the line between faith and crime. The so-called preacher was still deeply tied to Cape Town's underworld, this time even deeper than before. Images of his funeral flooded social media. A crowd of family and followers gathering to honor a fallen king of the streets. February 2021. William Red Stevens, a man whose full face of tattoos made him one of the most recognizable figures in Cape Town's underworld, was gunned down outside his own home. Stevens was shot 9 times by 3 gunmen. The attack was brutal and left no room for survival. No one may ever know why he was targeted, except the men who wanted him gone. But in the aftermath, whispers spread across Cape Town streets. One name surfaced again and again: Ralph Stanfield. The killing of Stevens sent shockwaves through the underworld. Furious over the loss of their leader, the 27th struck back, opening fire in 28's territory. Payback followed almost immediately, and the city braced for more bloodshed. September 2021. Sergeant Faisal Adams, 41 years old, was off duty when his life was cut short. A father of two, Adams had gone to visit his cousin, an alleged gang leader. But Adams was never meant to be the target. Video footage shows two gunmen. They opened fire when they arrived. It's believed the hit was planned for the gang leader. In the chaos, Adams became a casualty of a war he had no part in. His death came during a wave of police killings across Cape Town. In the weeks before, several other officers had already been murdered by criminals. And just nearly a month later, another alleged gang leader was killed at the same location. On May 2023, Joel Booysen, the flashy son of alleged Sexy Boy's boss, Jerome Booysen, was caught in a daylight ambush in Greenpoint. Known for flaunting luxury cars and designer clothes on social media, Joel was behind the wheel when gunmen opened fire. Bullets ripped through his car, running for cover as chaos erupted on the street. Witnesses filmed the aftermath. Videos quickly spread online, showing the brazen attack in one of Cape Town's busiest districts. But Joel walked away. It wasn't the first time they had tried to take his life. The only thing that saved him before was an armored car. This time, he was shot as he stepped out of his vehicle. Exactly 1 month later, the shooters struck again. Joel's brother, Janino Booysen, was driving with 4 passengers, including a 9-year-old boy, when gunmen opened fire. A black Range Rover, riddled with bullets and crashed against a roadside island, became the latest image of the city's gang war. For Jerome Booysen, this was nothing new. Between 2017 and 2018, he himself survived 6 assassination attempts, shot 5 times, and left for dead, but never taken down. He insists he knows who is behind the attacks on his sons. In a short space of time, Ralph Stanfield has watched his bloodline bleed away. One by one, some of the most powerful men connected to his family have been erased in a storm of bullets. On March 13th, 2023, his brother, Simon Stanfield, was ambushed in Delft. Gunmen unleashed a hail of fire into his VW Polo, leaving him dead behind the wheel. His murder came just days after the burial of another alleged 28th member, Ernest McLaughlin, who had been gunned down in Belhar on March 2nd. Simon was more than just family. He was a big player in Valhalla Park, a feared and respected gang boss. After his death, members flooded social media with threats of war, reverently naming him the Glass of the Gang. Simon had been no stranger to the police. In 2021, he and around 40 alleged 28th members stormed into a luxury car dealership, smashing windows and demanding 2 vehicles as payment under the so-called Big Boss of the Western Cape. The brazen attack was caught on CCTV, the footage spreading like wildfire online before arrests quickly followed. But Simon wasn't the only casualty. In November 2023, Ralph's cousin, Mogamet Noor Stanfield, was gunned down at the age of 41. As the son of the late crime lord Colin Stanfield, Noor was seen as one of the firm's most powerful figures, ranked directly below Ralph. Then came December 2024. Another cousin, Craig Stanfield, 42 years old, had just walked out of prison after attempted murder charges against him were withdrawn. Within hours, he was dead, gunned down in what is believed to be a hit by rival gangsters. Like his cousins before him, Craig was considered one of the firm's heavyweights. In Delft, a township marked by struggle yet filled with promise, a multi-million rand dream was rising. The Symphony Way housing project, a symbol of hope for thousands of desperate families. But in Cape Town, hope comes at a price. and it's often taken by force. On February 16th, 2023, at 11:30 a.m., 49-year-old city environmental official Wendy Kloppers arrived at the Symphony Way housing project in Delft. As she signed in at the entrance with a colleague, two shooters advanced and suddenly riddled her white BMW with gunfire, sending more than 15 bullets tearing through the vehicle. Kloppers was killed instantly, while her colleague survived, wounded in the arm. Construction on the Symphony Way housing project came to a sudden stop. Witnesses were scarce, and fear silenced the community. The city of Cape Town moved quickly, offering a reward of 100,000 rand for information leading to the arrest and prosecution of those behind Wendy Kloppers' murder. Smaller rewards of 5,000 rand were also announced for information on anyone targeting city housing projects with extortion or violence. Then a private donor stepped forward, raising the stakes with a staggering 1 million rand reward for information that would expose Wendy's killers. Wendy Kloppers, a mother of two, had dedicated more than 20 years of her life to serving the city. But investigators believed her murder was no random act. Instead, all signs pointed to the shadowy world of Cape Town's so-called construction mafia, a network accused of terrorizing projects across the city. The Symphony Way site had already been under attack. Just a week before the killing, it had been hit with petrol bombings and shootings. The contractor had pulled out, citing extortion and safety concerns. According to sources, Wendy's murder came after the city refused to bow to the mafia's demands. Gang-linked extortionists had pressured the contractor, demanding a share of the project while bypassing the legal tender process. The Symphony Way housing project was meant to be a beacon of hope, the Western Cape's largest social housing development, with RDP homes for nearly 3,500 families. The project was expected to cost at least 500 million rand. Construction began in April 2022, with completion set for November 2026. But now, those families will wait even longer. After Wendy's murder, work stopped for months. Security staff were attacked and too afraid to return. The city was forced to pour an additional 40 million rand into securing the site. To put that into perspective, money that could have built another 190 houses was instead spent on armed guards and protection. What was meant to be a symbol of progress for Delft had turned into yet another battlefield in Cape Town's war between hope and power. When the city of Cape Town tried to relaunch the Symphony Way housing project in March 2025, it was supposed to be a moment of hope. Residents of Delft gathered, celebrating the promise of homes and stability. But in Cape Town, hope is fragile and often met with violence. The project was quickly overshadowed by threats from the so-called construction mafia. Human Settlements Mayoral Committee member Karl Popheim revealed he had received death threats, warning him not to relaunch the project. Standing before the community, he admitted that his life had been threatened simply for trying to deliver houses.
So it is so that I've received a number of threats around not relaunching the site, around us not awarding the tender to a contractor. And of course, one doesn't know who it is, but certainly it's those who want to benefit themselves.
By the end of 2023, Cape Town city manager revealed a chilling truth. An investigation was underway into widespread extortion driven by drug-dealing gangs. The probe uncovered a network so deep it forced the city to blacklist 12 companies operating in the Western Cape. All of them were said to be linked to one name, Nicole Johnson. Investigators didn't stop there. Their search led them straight into the corridors of government. In March 2023, the Commercial Crimes Unit stormed the offices of Malusi Boy, then the city's mayoral committee member for human settlements. The raid caught him completely off guard. Police seized his electronic devices and stacks of official documents. The allegations against him were damning that he accepted cash from gangsters in exchange for sensitive information about housing tenders. that he maintained secret ties with underworld figures from Bishop Lavis, a territory long dominated by the feared 28th gang. According to investigators, Malusi Boy's office wasn't just corrupt. It was compromised. Staff members were allegedly dispatched to a gang-owned house in Bishop Lavis, where they collected cash payments ranging from 20,000 Rand to 100,000 Rand. The money was funneled through the bank account of his personal assistant, and Boy allegedly instructed how it should be spent. Sources went further, alleging that Stanfield personally paid for Boy's children's education. Boy was suspended and later dismissed. The case revealed the depth of collusion between the city and Cape Town's underworld.
But that it is a serious matter relating to alleged fraud and corruption in human settlements immediately to protect that, and so I have placed him on suspension immediately.
The so-called power couple of Cape Town's underworld are now behind bars. On 28 September 2023, the Western Cape anti-gang unit stormed their Constantia mansion and took them into custody. The charges against them are staggering: car theft, assault, robbery, fraud, and, according to investigators, even attempted assassination. This was not the first time the pair had been dragged into the law's spotlight. 9 years earlier, they were implicated in a firearms scandal involving allegedly corrupt police officers. They were arrested, but never charged. This time, the allegations cut far deeper. At the center of the case is a stolen BMW 320i, a car said to belong to a former employee accused of taking more than R1 million from Stanfield. According to the state, on the 24th of November 2022, that employee, now a witness, was driving the BMW when he received a chilling call. A co-worker warned him not to come into work because Ralph Stanfield wanted him dead. Fearing for his life, he abandoned the car at a secure complex in Milnerton and went into hiding. But Stanfield allegedly would not let the matter rest. Investigators claim he forced the victim's father to drive around with him as he hunted his own son. Hours later, with Nicole Johnson by his side, Stanfield allegedly tracked the BMW to Milnerton. Accompanied by a group of men, they forced their way into the complex, insulted neighbors, and towed the car away in full view of residents. 7 months later, the BMW was found in Valhalla Park, a stronghold of the 28th gang. Witnesses claim they overheard Stanfield telling his cousin, Simon, that there was no hope for the car's owner and that he should finish the job. Johnson's reach seemed to stretch beyond the walls of prison. Investigators discovered that she had purchased a R5 million Atlantic Seaboard apartment from a prominent property developer, while already awaiting trial. Now, with the weight of the state bearing down on them, their empire stands on the edge of collapse. Their case is set to move to the High Court, with a pre-trial conference scheduled for the 7th of November 2025.